Today I want to play a little game with you, Tucker,
All right.
because we're continuing to talk about thinking for yourself, which is one of the things that Jesus taught his disciples, and I would say continues to teach his disciples as we read the Gospels. So in the sermon last week, I talked about 3 things that I think Jesus was teaching us how to think. So last week on our podcast, we named several things that we think Jesus was not saying. In the sermon, I focused on what I think Jesus is saying. And this week, he's going to say more of those things. So I'm going to throw some things at you that's in the next chapter of Luke, Luke 14, but it's more examples of what we saw last week. So I'm going to ask you what you think Jesus is teaching us using these 3 pieces of the way that he was teaching.
All right. You're going to put me to the test.
I'm going to put
See
you
if I was
to
listening.
the test. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
We'll see how it goes.
Cool. Well, Anson, we thought we were past the winter weather, and then it just came and snowed more than I remember in my lifetime.
We were not past the winter weather.
We were not. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we got over a foot of snow probably.
Yeah.
And it snowed for an entire day, which I don't remember that happening.
I thought it
much
was
at
pretty
all.
great.
You brought the winter weather with you down here from Chicago.
So yeah,
when you moved.
we've been in North Carolina 4 years now, so it's been a few winters that I've not been in Chicago. But that would have been a big snow by Chicago standards.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's dumping 12 to 18 inches of snow, that's big anywhere.
Yeah.
And so especially here, it was pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
And it was nice too that it was the good kind of snow. It didn't come with all sorts of warnings of power outages.
Yeah.
It was light and fluffy and pretty to watch fall during the day. And I have an 11-year-old, and we have some sleds that we brought down with us from Illinois. So we broke out the sleds from the attic and had a ball.
Nice.
So it was great.
Yeah.
Can't complain.
Yeah. It was good. It's forced rest for us.
Yeah.
When God brings this weather our way, I
Yeah.
think. So yeah, I think it was beautiful to watch the snow.
Yeah. I didn't mind
And-
it.
Yeah. I was not I don't have kids yet. So when I saw that the feels like was 4, I was like, I'm gonna stay inside. I don't need to go play in the snow.
Yeah. That'll change one day.
Yeah.
I would have done the same too, but
Yeah.
no, it was good. Crazy to have done online only services for 2 weeks in a
I
row.
know.
Glad we have the tech to be able to do that.
Yes.
And hope well, we have the data, so we can tell that some people joined us, and that's
Yeah.
good. Glad for that.
Yeah.
But away we go. Hopefully this weekend we're back in action and
Yes, please.
doing our thing.
Yes, please. I miss seeing everybody. It
Yeah.
was giving me like flashbacks to the COVID days, which was not fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we don't want to go back there.
no, but yeah, we did. We just kept on rolling with the calling series.
Yeah, we
And
did.
So
We did.
we talked about the call to think this past week, which we hit on the podcast last week as well. And this week, you were telling me that it's going to be somewhat of a continuation of that.
So we're going to continue it on the podcast. On the sermon, the next topic is the call to plan. So it's about, hey, count the cost, is what Jesus says. Plan ahead. Think ahead about what it means to follow Jesus, because it's going to cost you something. It's, it's an investment of your life in following after Jesus. So that's the sermon. But I've mentioned before, as we go through the Gospels, I mean, there's a lot in these chapters. And so we've been covering a lot of ground every week. thankful to have the podcast that we can kind of unpack some things that don't have to try to squeeze it all into a sermon on a Sunday. So we're in Luke 14, and probably 2/3 of the chapter is a continuation of what he was doing in chapter 13. And the way I framed that was he's teaching his disciples to think for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I identified, what I called 3 different ways of thinking, like how to think for yourself. Think now, think big, and think last. And there's certain ideas behind those. Think now would mean, hey, we don't know how much time we have left. There's a lot of parables in Jesus' teaching that say, hey, he could come at any time. Even Jesus doesn't know when he's coming back. Only the Father knows.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of parables that talk about being watchful because we don't know if we have a day, a week, a year, 10 years, or 1,000 years left. So the repeated call in the Bible is turn to Jesus now. So there's an urgency. That's one of the ways to think. Think big is another one. One of the ways Jesus does that is in his teaching. He's continually teaching these religious leaders, kind of the hyper-religious, legalistic Pharisees and others. They weren't all that way, but certainly Jesus is dealing with the really legalistic ones throughout the Gospels. And he's saying, hey, you're losing the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
You're hyper-focused on these minuscule rules that weren't even a part of the original law of God. They were traditions that got added on by the religious leaders over the centuries. And so they were thinking very small. And so he's inviting them to think bigger about the true values of the kingdom and the big impact that comes when we do. Like even small gestures of love and kindness and justice can have a big impact. So think big. And then think last. And in chapter 13, he gave this very famous teaching, the first will be last and the last will be first.
Mm-hmm.
First being those who feel entitled, because maybe we grew up, around Christianity, or in Jesus' day, these were the Jews that were very religious. And so for whatever reason, religious-minded people can think of themselves as entitled to being first in God's kingdom. And he says that's really not it at all.
Mm-hmm.
He says the first will be last, and the last, those who are humble and repentant, they're the ones who will be first, and they're going to come from all over. So think now, think big, think last.
Mm-hmm.
And in the bulk of chapter 14, there's 4 different unique little paragraphs in Jesus' teaching that I think hit on all 3 of those. And one of them gets hit twice. And so that's what I want to test you on, Tucker. So I'm going to give you one at a time the 4 segments in chapter 14, and I'm going to ask you, do you think this is an example of Jesus teaching us how to think now, how to think big, or how to think last? And one of them is going to show up twice. So that's one of your hints.
All right. Well, I guess you guys will get to find out if I tuned into the online sermons.
Well, this is new, right? So there's more examples. So here we go. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready for the test?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm locked in.
What did you do in school to get your mind ready to take an exam? Did you have any rituals? No.
I just kind of went for it.
You skated by?
Yeah.
No.
I was one of those that did some studying.
Yeah.
But I just don't worry about a lot typically. Yeah. I'm pretty optimistic, so I'd be like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll be all right.
My ritual was to put my study off till the very last possible moment and cram, as I'm running across campus, trying to squeeze it into the very last minute.
When I actually needed to study, that was typically,
Sadly.
I was a big procrastinator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, here we go. Luke 14 opens up, and Jesus is having dinner at the home of a Pharisee.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the details in the little story is that they were watching Jesus closely. And so it's interesting. So Jesus is going around, he's teaching, and people are inviting him into their homes. A lot of times it was his followers. They were honored to have Jesus in their homes, but sometimes it was actually his opponents, these Pharisees who they were inviting Jesus in, but they wanted to trap him. And they were watching his every move. And so there's this cat and mouse game going on throughout the Gospels. And so this is one of those examples. He's eating in the home of a Pharisee who would have invited some other Pharisees in to be a part of this dinner with Jesus. And one of them speaks up and says, Jesus, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not?
Mm.
And so Jesus, he's talking to me. This isn't the first time this question has come up. And so he answers the question with a question, like Jesus so often does.
Total Jesus fashion.
Yeah. And he says, well, let me ask you this. If you have a child or an animal or a pet that falls into a ditch and gets stuck on the Sabbath, do you rescue that child or pet or animal, or do you leave them stuck?
Fair question.
Fair question. That's how Jesus answered it. And do you know how they responded to the question?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Silence. They had nothing to say.
Yeah.
Nothing to say. So, what was Jesus trying to teach them in terms of how to think?
I'm going to say, so it's think now, think big.
Think last.
Think last. I'm going to say think now.
Explain why you would answer it that way.
Because he's trying to say, like, you're so caught up on the Sabbath that you're missing what's happening right in front of you. Like, so in the last passage, it was like, you see the clouds and you see the wind change and you realize that weather's happening, but you're missing what's happening spiritually right in front of your eyes.
Yeah.
And I think that's when he says, like, if your ox or whatever falls into a ditch, would you not rescue it? And it's like, well, in the moment, yeah, of course you would.
Right.
But when they're asking him this question, in their mind, they're so focused on these, like, laws and things to follow that they would miss someone who was in need of healing right in front of them and an opportunity for spiritual impact.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Okay.
I think that whole situation, in the way that I think of it, is an example of needing to think big. I think he would say that in the big picture is the need that's right in front of you, which is what substantively, that's what you're saying. So,
that was my second choice.
In Anson's taxonomy of how to think, you got that one wrong.
That's okay. But that was my second choice.
But there's nothing authoritative about my categories.
Right.
So,
yeah.
All I'm saying is I think in all of these Sabbath questions where they're trying to pin him down, they're hyper focused on, like, the legalistic, law, and they're missing the big picture of rescuing someone in need. They're stuck. You're not going to leave them stuck all Sabbath. And what I think Jesus is repeatedly trying to get them to see, we saw it in Luke 13, we saw it in other places, is not only can people be physically stuck or trapped, but they can be spiritually stuck and trapped. And he's come to bring spiritual healing. And the way that happens is bringing healing of all kinds. And so I actually think this is a good little jumping off point for one of the things that we talk about all the time, and that is the necessity for healing. Sort of the first pillar of our mission is Jesus brings healing, connection, and purpose to people all around his community. It's what he was doing. And I think it happens, one kind of healing leads to another kind of healing. And I think when we get stuck in one way, it's very hard to find healing in another. So we talk about 4 different categories of healing: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Spiritual is ultimate. Spiritual is eternal. But Jesus cares about the whole person. And so, in this teaching, it's actually, a person or an animal, a child or an animal that gets physically stuck. And they've got to get freed from that in order to, move on and live their life. And I think that's true of spiritual realities as well. Like when we are physically stuck, illness, injury, whatever it is, physical pain, like when we're in crippling physical pain, forget about making progress in any, it just takes over our life, and until you get freedom from that pain, you're not making progress in anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think the same, and I think that's probably the primary, like, tangible reality for us is our physical bodies, right? And so if we're physically broken or in pain, it's very hard to think clearly, to
Mm-hmm.
to feel, in a healthy way, for it to be emotionally healthy, mentally
Mm-hmm.
healthy, spiritually healthy. Not that people can't be spiritually healthy while dealing with chronic pain, but it's a hurdle to get
Mm-hmm.
over.
Yeah, because they're all so connected.
Yeah, also connected.
Yeah.
Same thing emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
when we're trapped with fear or grief or an overpowering emotion, it's going to be hard to make progress in any other area of life as well. Mentally, when we're fixated on an idea or we believe something, so narrow that excludes,
Mm-hmm.
seeing other perspectives, it's going to be hard for us to learn and grow spiritually. And so I think this sort of brings to the surface a reality of our physical being, our emotional being, our mental being, all connected to our spiritual growth. And so often what Jesus did was he brought physical healing to people and then called them to follow him,
Mm-hmm.
called them into God's kingdom. And so he dealt with that primary need first
Mm-hmm.
and freed them to receive his love, forgiveness, grace, and to find spiritual health as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's all like on display in this little teaching here. But I would say, again, I'm not the authority on it, but
Yeah.
I think they needed to think big and see that reality, see what's going on here
Mm-hmm.
versus hyperfixating on the law.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
All right. I'm 0 for 1.
But that's okay.
I can redeem
we
myself.
we have 3 more.
We have 3 more.
3 more. So, okay, Jesus is continuing at this dinner.
Mm-hmm.
He's being very proactive here, by the way, too. A lot of times you see Jesus responding to people bringing him questions.
Mm-hmm.
But here, Jesus is on he's on the proactive side.
Oh.
So he walks in and so he answers this question and then he looks around and he says, he notices like where people are sitting as they come in.
Mm-hmm.
And so he offers up this parable. He says, hey, if anybody invites you to a wedding feast, don't go taking the best seat at the table, because what might happen is the host could come to you and say, I'm sorry, this is someone else's seat. Can you slide down the table? And then you're stuck taking the last place at the table and you're humiliated. He said, instead, take the least desirable seat first, and perchance the host will invite you up and honor you by inviting you, no, come sit closer to the head of the table. So he says, don't come in and take the best seat, come in and take the worst seat. Otherwise, you're risking getting humiliated and moved to the back of the line. So
I feel pretty confident.
You feeling good about this one?
I feel good about
It's an example of thinking
last.
Right on.
Yes. Yeah, and I actually think this is as you were telling the story again, obviously I've heard it before, but I'm thinking of in my own life, it's like, yeah, there are some times where I pick like what would be the best seat in a situation. Like if you're going out to eat and you're with a large group, if you sit at the ends of the table, you're only going to be able to talk to like 2 people. But if you sit in the middle, you're in like every conversation.
Yeah.
So now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, wow, I need to stop trying to maneuver my way into the middle seats.
You know what I think of is parking lots. Yeah. I'm always looking to get the closest parking space I possibly can. Drives my wife crazy because I'll squeeze into a small spot and she's like, why do you do that? It's because I want to be first.
Yeah.
I think first, not last when I pull into a parking lot.
As we are all prone to do. Real life scenarios.
Yeah.
Which I think I love just watching how Jesus communicates with people because he's just the master at it. But him telling a story to point out something that's happening in the room is just like, that's genius. Because they don't feel threatened by, he's not calling them out and saying like, you idiots, what are you doing? But he just tells a story and then just lets them do with that what they will.
Yeah.
I just think that's awesome.
He just drops it right in there.
Yeah. He uses a real life example and says,
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah. I think another one from childhood is calling shotgun.
Yes.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
we used to race each other to the car, shotgun, to get the
Mm-hmm.
front seat.
Yeah. Me and some of the other guys on staff still do that when we go to lunch. So you do it in adulthood too.
That's fun.
And I'm mainly the culprit.
Boxing each other out.
Yeah. So it sounds like I need to think last a little more.
Yeah. And I think this gets at the value of humility. When we're humble, we think of ourselves last and we think of others first. I think that's what Jesus is getting at, is humility is a mark of the kingdom, whereas pride and entitlement are marks of the world, and just competing values there.
Yeah.
All right, you're one for two. One and one.
Yeah, 1-on-1. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Tied up. All right. Here we go. Number 3. So they're still sitting at the table, and Jesus offers up another teaching. And he says, so in that previous one, he was talking about when you get invited to a feast, wedding feast or whatever, someone else's occasion, this is how to behave, right? Well, then he flips the tables and he says, when you're the host and you're inviting others to come to your place for dinner or a party or an event or whatever, he says, don't just invite the most well-to-do people that you can, like the most attractive and affluent and, the best and the brightest that you think you could get to come to your house. He says, don't do that. He says, because when you do that, it's likely they might invite you back over to their place and you've received your reward. He's not saying it's sinful, but he says the better thing is to go and invite the poor and the outcast and the least and the lowest. Invite them to enjoy your hospitality, even though there's no way they can repay you. And he says, and then when you do that, your reward will be in heaven, because now you're laying up treasure and kingdom values by extending hospitality and welcome to the least and the lowest, as opposed to the best and the brightest. So Jesus is teaching us in that story how to think
big.
Why big?
That makes me feel like I'm wrong.
I'll just ask you a question.
Okay.
Just because it's the same question I asked you when you got the first one wrong, purely coincidental.
Okay. So I think big because he said, to your point, he's not saying inviting, people of affluence or influence or popularity, whatever word you want to use. It's not that that's wrong. It's just the impact of including the least of these and the outcast and the poor is far greater than inviting people who have popularity and influence and all the things. So that would be why I think it would be think big.
It's actually pretty good reasoning right there. It's not what I said. I can't argue with it.
So the question did mean I was wrong.
Yeah, it did. Sorry.
That's okay.
I was just trying to hold everyone in suspense for just a few minutes.
You're testing my lawyer skills of just being able to explain my way into a right answer.
I'm going to give you every opportunity to make your case. But I think that's actually true. I think it is big picture. What I see in it is another example of thinking last. And it's sort of like the other side of the coin of, we want to be first. We also want to be associated with those who make us feel good, make us kind of puff us up. We got, our guest list is the more impressive the guest list, the more impressive we feel. Right. And also to receive the reciprocal invitation, to be a guest in those, that's all kind of first pride kinds of categories, I think. Whereas thinking last, you're associating with sort of the least and the lowest. And it's a humble gesture on our part, right? To say, I'm trying to puff myself up by inviting the best and the brightest, but I'm humbling myself by associating with the least and the lowest. And also, I get my reward later. So Jesus is saying, in the kingdom, in eternity, then you're going to receive your rewards. I think in those ways, it's a first-last distinction, but I think you make a strong case. I do.
Okay.
For a big picture versus small picture.
Is this like in school? Can I negotiate for like half a point?
I'll give you half a point.
All right.
Yeah. That was good. Yeah.
I think it is. It's that delayed gratification versus instant gratification dichotomy that our culture struggles with immensely.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
See, I was hesitant to say think last because we just did it. And I was like, no way it's going to be back to back.
And yet, Jesus surprises us all the time.
I know. Talk myself out of it.
So this is, if the previous one was humility, of how we think of ourselves, I think this gets at things like compassion, generosity, giving of ourselves to others without concern for receiving in return. I think it's also patience, waiting for heaven and the reward to come then, and not being so sort of immediate gratification oriented. So I think in all these teachings, Jesus is weaving together so many different kingdom values and, teachings, truths in these different interactions that he has with the Pharisees and the stories that he tells. And I think he's teaching us how to think now, how to think last, how to think big, all those things.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too, because, he talks about your reward coming in later. But when you do take time to be generous and show compassion to people and serve and humble yourself for the sake of others, you definitely get a reward in that moment. Like seeing the impact that simply inviting someone who you may not typically invite to your gathering, what that means to them versus someone who's used to it.
Yeah.
They don't really think anything of it except for maybe inviting you to something. But like when you see the impact that it has, that does something to you as well. So it is, there is a reward in heaven, but there also, I think Jesus still does give us a sense of reward doing it in real time.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that too. All right. So that's 3 of the 4. There's one left. So we've had a think big and 2 think lasts. Here's the last one. So the previous 3, Jesus is dealing with like how we interact with one another on earth. So healings on the Sabbath, when you invite when you get invited to a banquet, when you invite someone to your banquet, our actions, sort of human level actions. So he closes out this section with a parable about God and his kingdom and his banquet. And so he tells this parable of the master of a house who's prepared this great banquet. And he announces when it's all ready and prepared, he says, "Come now, for it's all ready to go. My banquet is ready." And he says to his servants, "Go out and tell everyone that I've invited." So he sent out these invitations. They've all gone out. Now it's ready. Servants go, let everybody know that's on the guest list, the invite list, that it's time, it's ready, come to the banquet. So they do. And then they start to get all these excuses. And one person who was on the invite list says, "Oh, I've just bought a field. I need to go and inspect the field." And someone else says, "Oh, I've just, done this or that, and I've got to go do this." And so they 3, 4 different examples of all these excuses. And the master of the house says, "Well then, since the ones who were invited aren't coming, go out into the streets and invite the poor, invite the lame, invite the oppressed, that they might come to my banquet." And they did. But then the servant goes to the master and says, "Hey, they came, but there's still room." And the master of the house says, "All right, well then go out into the highways and byways, like go outside of town, out into the countryside to the neighboring towns, and say, anybody who will come, because I want my house to be full." And he says, no one who was invited is going to come, but go out and compel anyone who would come to come and fill my house because it is ready now. So in Anson's taxonomy of Jesus' teaching, now, big, or last?
This one's got to be now, right?
It's got to be.
Got to be. Yeah.
Because it said, come now.
Exactly. Yeah. And now these people are giving excuses for why they're not coming now. And so he's like, you know
Well
what?
done.
And go invite it, whoever will come now.
Yes.
Yeah. So
there it is.
All right. 2.5 out of 4.
2.5 out of 4. That ain't bad.
It's over 50%.
It's passing.
It is passing. And if I would have had all of them up front, I could have used process of elimination, but
I didn't want to make it easy for you.
Yeah. You needed to give me a challenge. So
that's right.
Yeah.
You're up for a challenge. So as you think about this parable, how does it strike you?
Well, my first thought is just, man, what a beautiful picture of the character of God. Just that part where it's the master says he wants his house to be full.
Yeah.
I think, last week we talked a little bit about how, Jesus makes the comment that he came to bring division. You thought I came to bring peace, but I came to bring division.
Yeah.
I think that's how a lot of people think about Jesus, that he's like drawing lines in the sand of who gets in and who gets out. And it's like, no, he wants his house to be full.
Yeah.
I mean, he can't. Yeah. There's a line where it's like, okay, but if all the people who are making excuses and don't care to come to the master's banquet, it's like, okay, well, they don't want the opportunity of being a part of this banquet.
Yeah.
And so they're not going to come.
Yeah.
And other people will, because they're going to jump at the opportunity at this. And I think that's where we learn something about God in this parable, is that he wants all to come to him and to be saved. But he's not going to force anyone to do that.
Yeah.
They have to choose it. And unless they do that, then other people are going to get to come to the banquet. But I think it's a beautiful picture of God's heart and love for all of his creation, no matter where they are, no matter what they've done, what background they come from. He's like, go invite them all. The ones I invited first didn't want to. And, it's a picture of, he's subtly referring to like Israel and then those that would come after. But I think it applies just across the board.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I do think it's a good picture of the heart of God in that he's inviting all, right? So like in the immediate context, these Jews that were peppering Jesus with all these questions and trying to trap him, like, I think they would be the recipients of invitations. They're the ones who are making excuses. I think the least and the lowest, in the streets of town, it could be the rest of the Israelites, like they weren't the privileged ones, but they're in town. And I think you could probably make a case that the highways and byways, that's the Gentiles. It's like first the invitation was to Israel, then it went to every nation of the world. That's sort of redemptive history that we see throughout the Bible. But it is this open invitation and this desire on God's part. A couple times the emphasis is that my house may be full, that my house may be full. And I do think sometimes we get this misconception of God of like, keeping people away or making it hard. And, there's mystery in the divine sovereignty, human responsibility.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on which passage you're reading, I mean, there's some mystery there for us to wrestle with. But this particular parable of Jesus emphasizes the open invitation of God and the human responsibility to receive it and to come to him, to come be a part of his feast, be a part of his banquet. The very next section, and it's what we get in the sermon, is it's counting the cost. So receiving that invitation is going to cost you something. And so, there's human responsibility in receiving that invitation. And that gets emphasized in other places too. But let's not miss the primary point of this particular parable, which is the open heart of God. And it certainly shows up in other passages too. When I think is it First or Second Peter, where it's talking about how God is patient, waiting for Jesus to return so that more people would receive that invitation, because it says He doesn't want anyone to perish, but for everyone to come to repentance. And so God does this. He does have this desire for people to receive the invitation, repent, turn to Him, and be a part of His kingdom. And that's His heart.
Yeah. And it's, I think it forces us to think about, do we live out our lives with that same attitude towards people?
Yeah.
Like, do we live a invitational lifestyle of
Mm-hmm.
God wants all people to come to Him? Do I want all people
Mm-hmm.
to come to Him and be a part of a faith community with me? And we live in a culture that draws more lines in the sand and divides over more than what we have in common. And I do think that has a tendency to lead us to be more judgmental than we probably ought to be.
Yeah.
And I think this passage and seeing the heart of God and wanting to welcome everyone in should challenge us to think, well, who have I maybe made a judgment about and not been willing to invite them in, or
associate
maybe
with them.
I think this person's too far gone. God can't save them. So I'm just gonna, I'm not gonna even try to invite or talk about Jesus or anything like that. I think that happens far too often just because of the culture we live in, and we're just trained to have opinions and judgments on anything and everything, and usually it's to draw lines of where you stand. But I think we can learn a lot from, God wants His house to be full, and He sends His servants out to take those invitations. And if we view ourselves as servants of God, we need to be the one taking those invitations.
100%. I mean, that's where all the way back at the beginning of this series, seems like we've been in it for a minute. We've had 2 winter storms in the middle of this series, New Year's, all the things. But that's where it began, was pray that the Lord of the harvest would send out workers. And it's the disciples of Jesus that, you're right, they're the messengers of this good news. And I love too in this story, I mean, hospitality shows right up at the forefront of that. We talk about that a lot. It's one of the things in my sense is, it's kind of an underrated value in the Bible. And I think in our modern day, of how to build relationships with new people in our lives. Invite them over for dinner. Like, have people into our homes. I think in the modern era of America, in the West, we become so isolated that we're just not nearly as communal as even the United States used to be, not to speak of other parts of the world. And so evangelism or outreach or sharing the love of Jesus in my lifetime, our lifetime, the emphasis has been very strongly on almost like the argument, we're debating people into this, set of beliefs, which there is a set of beliefs, yes. But I think it starts with inviting people into a relationship and spending time with people and showing hospitality. And I think, in my life, in my adult life, the times where Dina and I have had the privilege of seeing other people take steps of faith, becoming a Christian and getting sort of engaged in church and learning what it means to follow Jesus, it's been because we became genuine friends. Like, it started with having meals together and no agenda, but just getting to know each other and spending time and enjoying each other's company. Eventually turned into the kids playing together. And God uses those relationships very often to, that our faith has a chance to rub off on them. And it's great. And so I think as followers of Jesus, that should be a core impulse of ours, I confess, I mean, it's not, we have a lot of room to grow in this. But I think that's where a lot of grace comes
Yeah.
in people's lives is through hospitality.
Yeah. And you have to be intentional about it.
Yeah.
If you don't set your mind to do it,
Yeah.
odds are it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And there's a book called The Simplest Way to Change the World. And that's about biblical hospitality. But I love that title because I believe that.
Yeah, I do too.
Having someone over for dinner is not complicated. And
Doesn't have to be.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. So a lot of times we make it more complicated than it needs to be. But a while back, I preached a sermon and it was back in the spring, and told a story about when we first moved into our new house, our neighbors right to the left of us had us over for dinner, and I was just so like struck by how simple it was, and it was such a meaningful time. We had great conversations, and we felt just super cared for by them, and by just the fact that they invited us over, welcomed us into their home. And the setting was their daughter was about to celebrate, I think it was her second birthday. And so they even had a friend over who was like helping make cupcakes and get stuff ready for the party. There's decorations like all over the living room. And you want to know what we had for dinner?
What'd you have?
We had Caesar salad, garlic breadsticks from the freezer, and frozen pizza. And it was the best time. Like, I love that meal.
Frozen pizza and salad.
That's all it takes. That's all it takes to create an environment for relational connection.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
That's great.
That really stuck with me.
Yeah. It's almost the simpler the better, because it says you can do this too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Humility.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. But I like what you said, and I think it's a good segue to what we're going to talk about next week with planning and thinking ahead, because you're right. Unless you put something on the calendar and make a plan, we probably won't do most things.
Like we talked about when we talked, at the beginning of this with the New Year's resolutions. Like, if you don't have a plan, you're going to be part of the population on Quitter's Day that your resolution's already faded out. And there's people I saw at my gym come that first week in January to sign up, and I haven't seen them since.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll confess, Haley and I, going into 2026, like, we want to be better at hospitality. And we haven't got around to actually, like, one of the things we said we wanted to do was intentionally host someone for dinner or whatever, at least once a quarter, just to start to try and like build a rhythm of that.
Yeah.
And we just haven't got around to actually like sitting down and like trying to get it on the calendar.
Yeah.
So I need to practice what we're preaching.
There we go. Yeah. Well, that's the sermon this week. Call it to plan. So I think it all fits together. So the calling.
Yeah.
Think for yourself.
Yeah. And I think, talking about hospitality is a great way to wrap up this conversation. And that's a core value of our church, as it is generosity and commitment and compassion.
You got them.
So we've talked about a lot of those, and talked about just kind of who we are as a church, that we exist to bring healing, connection, and purpose to people all around Lake Norman through the love of Jesus. So if you're enjoying these episodes and you're in the Lake Norman area and you're looking for a faith community to come be a part of God's Banquet, we would love to have you join us. And so there's a link to our website in the description. You can go there, you can connect with us there, and we would love to have an opportunity to meet you on a Sunday morning at one of our worship services. And we'll be back together next week.
Yes, we will.
All right. You guys have a good week. Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening to the end of the episode. If you're enjoying these conversations each week, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button right here on YouTube, or the follow button wherever you listen to podcasts. It's quick, it's free, it's easy, and it makes a huge difference in helping our podcast reach more people in the Lake Norman community. Thank you for supporting the For Lake Norman podcast, and we hope you have a great week.